Randy Simonson of the Harvest Time Outreach Church in Hudson. After the invocation, we'll stand, face the flag, and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Shall we stand?
Good morning. Good morning. I'd just like to say that I worked for a county for 20 years in law enforcement, and so I understand some of the politics and some of the stress and some of the strains on people that work for counties, and so I understand your burden, I understand your concerns, and even as a pastor at a church, we feel responsible with the money that's given, to our church, to be good stewards of it, and I'm sure you feel the same pressures, and so I just want to pray that God would give us wisdom to deal fairly and justly and to be good stewards of what He's given us. Father, thank you for this day. Thank you, God, that you've given us everything that we need in this earth, Lord, and that you've called us to be stewards of what you've given us. And Lord, even as employees for the county, even people that represent your citizens here in this county, God, we ask that you would give them wisdom. We ask that you would give them favor. We ask that you would open up doors for them that they could walk through. And Lord, even as they face some big decisions and some things, Lord, that maybe not everybody agrees with their thinking, we ask that you would give them your wisdom, that they would be led by you. And we thank you for speaking to them. We thank you for helping them. Thank you for blessing them. And we just speak your blessing over St. Croix County. We speak your favor over this county, and we ask for your blessing, Lord. We thank you for it. And thank you for these people. Thank you for their dedication and their commitment to excellence. Thank you that they care, and that they care enough, Lord, to dedicate themselves to it. And we just ask that you would bless them, bless their families, bless their homes, their marriages. Just bless your people here. Give them wisdom and give them favor in Jesus' name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're expecting to not have Mr. Mills or Mr. Kruger. Let's see what the roll call indicates.
Lois Burry. Here. Brian Hurchin.
Here.
Julie Spear. Here. Joe Hurchin.
Here.
Bill Peavy.
Here.
Gerald Peterson.
Here.
Charlie Grant.
Here.
Tom Dowd.
Here.
Chuck Mills is absent. Dick King.
Here.
Wallace Haphager.
Here.
John Mortensen.
Here.
Esther Wentz.
Here.
Jean Ritz.
Here.
Gordon Awesome.
Here.
Tom Kaflish.
Here.
Chuck Strumke.
Here.
Richard Marzoff.
Here.
Sharon Norton Bauman.
Here.
Ronald Troyer.
Here.
Roger Rebholz.
Here.
Bill Cranmer. Daryl Stanford. John Borup.
Here.
Clarence Malick. Don Jordan. Ron Raymond.
Here.
Cindy Leonard.
Here.
Linda Lucky.
Here.
Stan Kruger's absent. And Denise Gunderson.
Here.
27 present.
Yes.
Very good. Let's hear from our administrative coordinator, Mr. Chuck Whiting, with his report.
Good morning. Glad to see all of you here on this cold morning. Really hasn't been that long since we last met. I counted on the calendar. We've had only 15 working days since the last board meeting. So most of what I've got here might be a little bit more detailed than what I normally give you. Working through the Finance Committee a couple weeks ago, some of you have been following the minutes of that committee's meetings. There's been some discussion about space needs within this building, and a study is going to be done using Ayers and Associates to review our workspace. There's a parallel study going on up at New Richmond, so talking with Fred, we were able to combine those two and probably save some money on the use of Ayers. and we'll report back on their findings next month. Finance also approved going out for bids on the property at the county farm that was reviewed last month with the appraiser. We'll probably get responses back in time to report at your March meeting, and after some review by the Finance Committee and review with the county board, perhaps there will be a decision to make there. The consultant that was introduced to you at the last meeting as well on the Hudson property has started his work. He's arranged some meetings between county and city staff, and he's been in contact with surrounding property owners who have voiced some interest in what is taking place there. We'll have obviously more to report as he proceeds through that process. And let's see, today is the closing date for applications for personnel manager. This is the position that Eileen Graham currently has. She's retiring in March, and hopefully we'll get a good crop of applicants to follow up and hire from that pool of candidates. So there's a lot going on in terms of the start of the year. One of the things I'm working on, be reviewing over the next month and a half, will be the personnel policies, trying to get those in a little bit more accurate order, and we'll go from there if anybody has any questions.
Are the meetings going to be, are we going to be notified of the meetings that the appraiser is going to be having with the county department heads and this type of thing?
We certainly can.
Any other questions for Mr. Whiting? Thank you, Chuck. We're ready for the consent agenda, which includes the minutes of the last meeting. The clerk informs me that no suggestions for change of the draft minutes have been received by her. Our next meeting is scheduled for March 20th at 9 in the morning. We'll skip the month of February. No rezonings to act upon this morning, and the mileage and per diem report. What is your pleasure? Mr. Ritz moves approval of the consent agenda. Mr. Marzoff seconds that. Discussion. Ms. Gunderson.
I'd like to see us move the committee and department reports up to right after the appointments. That way it gives them time and we can listen to them, and it's not pushing them to the end of a meeting. Can we do that today?
You're suggesting that the report of the county clerk, the county treasurer, the Department on Aging, and the Building Services Department occur before the business matters of the nursing home, the goal setting, and the resolution about the utility easement?
Yes.
Anyone have an objection to that? Mr. Raymond.
Yeah, a lot of times when people have got a lot of time in front of them to fill, they take a little more time. I'd like, if we do that, I think we ought to have some reasonably strict guidelines on the time, because you know, we get to them and we give them short shrift at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It'd be a shame to give the business part of our meeting second-class treatment. So I don't disagree with listening to them, but let's make sure we got time to do all of that.
Let's see, I see we have in the room the clerk, of course, the treasurer, and the department head of the Department on Aging. Are the treasurer and the aging reports ready to go? If you have PowerPoints, are they loaded? If you don't have PowerPoints, that takes care of that. All right, they seem to be ready. I don't see Mr. Robley, so we'll see how that goes, I think, and let's try this. Ms. Spear.
David Best said that he would be here, so maybe if he was called. Ralph isn't available today.
All right. And I see Mr. Stanifer and Mr. Cranmer have arrived. Excellent. So we're up to 29 people. We're about to take a vote on the consent agenda, I think. All in favor should now vote aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes unanimously. Uh, The vice chair and I reviewed appointments this morning and decided to reappoint the 3 members of the Veteran Service Commission, who are Don Lind, Lyle Kelleher, and John Helgeson. So we're making that announcement public at this time, and you'll enter that in the minutes, and we'll send them their letters confirming their reappointments. Do you want to go first, Cindy? Or would you like to put one of the others on the spot?
It doesn't really matter. I'm here for the meeting, so.
Yeah, why
if
don't we
wanted
keep
to-
you in reserve? How about the treasurer? This is a busy time of year. Perhaps you'd like to get your report out of the way? Let me introduce to all Cheryl Slind, all who don't know her, any who don't know her, and our television audience. Yep, please use this one. The camera gets the best angle on you, and so do the supervisors. Is that your best side there?
So, let's hope so. Good morning, everyone. In your packets is a blue handout from me for my kind of annual report for another year. It's hard to believe how fast time flies, and I'm in my 5th tax season already, which is good. It's been good 4 years. I'll just basically go through this and not take up a lot of your time, but it is nice to be at the beginning instead of the end. Thank you. We continue, as we have in the past. The biggest thing I've probably done in the last 3 years, one of the biggest things, is brought on 14 municipalities onto the software, which works with our software for tax collection purposes. It really helps us save on staff time here. We're not manually inputting every manual tax bill that comes in. We have 9 municipalities left doing things manually, and I'm very patient with them. I realize that some of them have computers, some don't have the computer skills, some just don't care to want to do it by computer, and I respect that. So hopefully in time, we can add those 9. I'm sure with retirements and changing, I know I've got a couple boards looking at combining clerk-treasurer positions, which I assume will mean office hours for some of those municipalities and some changes. So hopefully in time that will change. We also continue to contract with 12 of the 35 municipalities. We collect their first installments, and they are listed. This has been implemented for some time, with the final municipality being added. The first year I was here in 2002, which was the Village of Baldwin. I have not added any since then, basically for the reason of the software. It's very usable, it's very compatible, and it's very good for both parties to work together and keep doing that. And I wouldn't, at the time, with the way the collection is, the 12 municipalities we do collect for represent over half of the tax bills in the county. We would have to add some staff time to that, and I just don't think that's necessary. Not when there's another tool out there for them to use. Since January of '04, we have been taking tax payments via credit card and or an ACH payment with electronic debit from your checking account. As you can see, over the last 2 years, we've had a significant increase in usage of that tool. It amazes me the number of people who will pay their taxes by credit card. There is a fee to them to do that. There is no charge to us. They pay an additional 2.35%. I know some of them have it figured down to the wire of how many extra miles they get or whatever extra percentage they get on their taxes or on their credit card. But it has been what I think is a good thing. I was asked the other day if I've noticed a decrease in traffic at the counter. I wouldn't say that yet, but as you can see, if we continue to grow as we have been with an 80% increase of collection over last year, that probably will slowly start to be the case. The ACH and credit cards probably are 60-40. I would say 60% are using credit cards, 40% are using the ACH at this time. So that continues to be a good thing. The ag use penalties has been an additional revenue to the county for the past, since 2003 actually. And this year's revenue has been the highest to date. We currently have collected $77,172.26, but we have an additional $57,000 that we put on the tax roll. This is the first year I've had that big amounts not paid. A lot of that represents some plats that weren't paid, and what we did with those, if the developer still owned 20 lots out of the 35, I divided up the amount and put it on the 20 he still owed, because it is his charge, not the new owner's charge. So that represents the biggest chunk of that 57,000 is a lot of plats. I think there were 4 municipalities that had some different plats, and I worked with those treasurers in putting that on. And as you can see, we've billed out the most we have was $212,122.16. Of that, we received 50%. The municipalities that I bill that out for represents and receives the other 50%. In addition to that, I have been placed on a task force, myself and the Greene County Treasurer, to work with the WCA and the assessors and legislators in changing some of that law. And as it comes necessary to get your support, you'll hear from me. We're in the real developmental stages. We met with a representative last June at our annual conference. We gave her a list of 18 different things that we felt needed to be changed with that law. When it was implemented, it was just said, the county treasurers are going to do it and this is what's going to happen. You know, we don't, the definition of conversion still varies from assessor to assessor. We asked for some basic verbiage changes, like changing it from a penalty to a conversion fee, because the minute somebody gets a letter from me and it says penalty, all the red flags go up. We have some real basic stuff, but we have some in-depth stuff too. And my understanding is we're going to be working with Representative Seidel from over by Wausau. She is the one who came to us initially to get some basic. We have like 4 real basic things. They tell me I have to be patient because those things don't change overnight, and I will be, but it's real frustrating in the meantime what some of the details of the law. And I think it's really frustrating for the assessors too. I don't think things were real clear when the whole thing was set up. We're not looking at changing anything as far as who collects the fees, how they're collected, who shares what. That's not a concern of ours at this time. It's just some of the basic things that just don't make sense to us in our everyday business. So I'll be working on that. And as I also continue to do the bank reconciliation for the monthly. One other thing I did not add to this, and I apologize, my department took over the tax billing process this year. In the past, the real property department has done that. We began the tax billing on November 28th and had, with the exception of the city of Nurchman and the city of Hudson, we'd completed all 33 municipalities by December 8th. Tax bills in hand to treasurers by December 8th. So we were real pleased how that was handled and how it went through our department. The only 2 hang-ups with the city of Richmond was they didn't pass their budget till the second Monday of December, so we couldn't work with them until that following Tuesday. And of course, the city of Hudson had the delay of the revaluation, which pushed all their numbers back. We did have them out the door within 5 hours of receiving their numbers. I believe it was the 21st of December. So we worked with them heavily in getting that out. The comparison figures are there. You can see tax roll figures continue to rise. Receipts, disbursements, delinquent taxes are up a little bit over last year. With a lot of the change of the economy, a lot of layoffs, I anticipate this number probably will be higher next year, unfortunately. It'll be really interesting to see after December how that pans out, especially with the Anderson folks. We saw a lot of them come in February. They didn't care if they paid that 1 month's penalty and interest. They paid it with their profit sharing. I don't know what the case with that will be this year, so it'll be interesting to see. I know you're always interested in the dog track information. We received their payment on Friday at 2 o'clock on their 2003s, which clears them off for another year. So we'll anticipate and wait for another check about a year from now. That continues to be very interesting. So.
2003 has been paid.
Correct. Yep. So they're good. And we won't be taking their property again. So. And then the real estate information as follows. I've broken it down for you by 05 and 06 comparisons, and then the municipalities, what their total tax rolls will be for this upcoming year. I want to thank my staff, my deputy June Sather and my account clerk Denise Boran. Without them, our office wouldn't be as successful as it is. we continue to work as a team, and I appreciate them. I also want to thank the people who come in during tax time, because we couldn't do it without them, those people, and that's Pat Gray, Barb Berkey, Marilyn Anteel, and Louise Jeske. They really are a good staff to work with. We try to have fun without staying too stressed out, and it really works well, and I really appreciate their extra work. So with that, if you have any other questions. Charlie?
We didn't get a copy of that in the front row here.
Oh,
I don't know whether people.
you didn't? Okay. Well,
We like to listen real good, man.
okay, there'll be a test later, Charlie.
Okay.
Okay, I will get you a copy. I will leave. Buzz?
Thank you.
Yes.
I don't know if this question relates more to your department or to Michelle Patrick's department, but I have two questions, the second of which I think is contingent on the first.
Okay.
Last July, on our phone bill, there was a notice on the back indicating that the federal government had unfairly imposed some kind of an excise tax on long-distance phone calls or something like that.
Okay.
And I don't know if county governments pay a federal government tax or not, but if so, is anything being done to ask for a rebate on those phone taxes for our county if in fact they were imposed?
I'll have to say I have to pass it on to Michelle. Sorry with that. I don't know anything about it, and she would have to respond to that for you. But I can certainly make sure she understands you have a question and get to you. Okay?
For the benefit of anyone else, when you file your taxes, you're entitled to claim that back. I don't know what the mechanism for
Okay.
doing that is, but you might check your summer phone bills for the wording of that on the backside.
I just read about that this week. There's a specific tax amount that is due to everybody if they don't look up all their phone bills. Otherwise, there's a specific numbered IRS form that you can use to figure out how much refund you can get on your federal income taxes because of this imposition of an unfair tax. It's like Form 9069 or something like that.
So, Ms. Slim, you'll pass that question along to Ms. Petrick?
I will do that.
Well, thank you for your report.
Okay.
Mr. Strumke has a question.
Just a quick one.
Yes.
Knowing that we should not be charging excess amounts to our citizens to have a service performed, and I use a debit card to pay a lot of bills, I'm a little confused. Or I just have a question, is down on the front page here, you talk about an ACH debit to the checking account is charged $3. I don't see where ACH is explained. Is that just a normal debit card transaction?
Basically, it's a debit card or debit transaction from your checking account. It's basically you wrote a check over the internet, and they charge you $3 to do that.
Well, who's charging the $3?
The credit card company that we use, Same Day Pay, the company that handles all the transactions and gets the money to us, charges the $2.35 and the $3 transaction fee.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Very good. Let's hear from the Department on Aging next.
Hello there. Hopefully everyone received in their packets my report, written report. And you'll see there on the left-hand side, maybe some familiar faces, folks in St. Croix County who are served by the Department of Aging. I included our mission statement and also alluded to the fact that we have entered a new era. I just heard on the radio this morning that Dr. Laura Schlesinger turned 60 years old. So she joins the ranks along with our President George Bush, former President Bill Clinton, Cher, and Jimmy Buffett as being baby boomers who have turned 60 years old. And with that, reaching that magical number would be able to be served by the Department of Aging. So if you see any of those folks, let them know we're here and we have those services available. With that, all kidding aside, there are changes that are taking place with aging, and the Department of Aging is excited to be a part of that, seeing not so much challenges, but real opportunities for growth and for meeting those needs. And I've included some demographic information that St. Croix County, compared to the state of the whole, has been, the rate of growth for the older population has been much faster here than the state of Wisconsin. And we can see that too with the folks that we're serving. The Department of Aging is instrumental in helping folks remain independent and in their communities involved. It's a real privilege to serve folks who are of an older generation and to help them with their independence. Our benefit specialists helping folks with the Medicare Part D, that was a big part of her outreach efforts during these last few months, but also helping people maintain their financial resources. Caregiver support, helping family members who are caring for folks with dementia or other kinds of chronic conditions through our Day Away Respite program, our caregiver support groups. Transportation would be another concern that we address, not only getting people to the senior centers to receive nutritious meals, but also folks who need to get to dialysis or chemotherapy appointments. Those are services currently not available in St. Croix County, and so volunteers are able to get folks to those appointments. Not enough can be said too about our volunteers, most of whom are 60 years or older. In 2006 alone, 350 individuals volunteered over 16,700 hours at a cost savings of at least $144,000. And actually, Mrs. Crystal Bear of Hudson, who is 90 years old, volunteered over 800 hours last year. And when I spoke with her, she really talked about how that gives her purpose in the morning when she wakes up. She didn't want to talk too positively about it because she didn't want someone to come along and take her volunteer job from her, since those are her duties. But I think she reflects overall a commitment that is definitely apparent in our volunteers as well as our staff. And of course, I want to thank them for their efforts. This past year and looking ahead too, I think it's been very valuable for the department to work in collaboration with both our other county departments as well as the private sector. As you're aware, I've been working with long-term support, health and human services, with the aging long-term care reforms that are taking place, and I find that to be very valuable to be a part of those changes that are taking place. Have also worked with the Deerfield and Westfield hospitals, YMCA, putting together a senior resource fair. I think there are a lot more opportunities for taking advantage of that kind of collaboration. I alluded to a MetLife study and made reference to that. I want to encourage you to follow up and look at that. It's available on the internet, talking about how our communities really need to start taking steps now to prepare for the aging population and how it's changing. One effort that we've taken is to put together an aging information exchange with other public and private sector providers for older adult services. And there's a real enthusiasm for professionals who are working in that area to get together and share that information. So that's exciting, I think, as well. Again, you can look more clearly in terms of what the accomplishments we have made in this past year as well as our goals for this next year. As you'll note, the goals, a few of them have been specially noted, that they were a part of our aging unit plan that was brought before our Council of Aging and approved. And if you would want further information about that, I'm able to give that to you. Want to remind you too, all of you hopefully are getting the scan, the St. Croix Aging News, at your home. And in fact, your Buzz, what you brought up about the phone, that tax issue, there's an article about it in the scan. So good information is available there regarding what's taking place with older adult services in the county. And finally, I want to extend an invitation to you. One of the accomplishments this past year, we did receive a grant to do an office redesign and did have an open house during Older Americans Month during the month of May, where many of you attended. But again, would welcome you back to our office. We've put together a resource library, again, have tried to make available to not only older adults and their family members, but professionals, variety of different resources. And right now we have a rotation of art created by older adults in St. Croix County that we've had an ongoing schedule, and it's been kind of neat. It's brought in just the general public to come in to look around. You know, again, it's aging is something that sometimes folks don't want to think about, but it's a privilege denied to many, and really is a blessing. As I said, to work with older adults, to have their example and their commitment, their civic mindedness for all of us to observe and hopefully grow from. So, thank you. Any questions? Yeah.
Yeah, the older population growth rate, 22 versus 7% for the state. Is there any reason for that that was reported?
Well,
like we're not going to Florida, or something? There's got to be some reason that we're seeing it.
I think this is an attractive area to retire. Again, I think, we see just the overall growth in St. Croix County, but for many people, the medical care that's provided here, I think for the economy as it is, I think those would be some of the reasons that people choose to retire here. I mean, fortunately, they're close to the university system, you know, cultural kinds of events. It's an attractive place to retire. There are a lot of snowbirds. We see that from our senior centers, folks who head south. I just got back from the long weekend in Georgia, and I have to say that 70-degree weather is nice. So, yeah. Any other questions or comments? Yeah.
You talked about people who are caregiving in their homes and the support that you have that can help them. How do they get the word that there is support out there for them?
Well, and as you'll see, that's part of our goals to improve our marketing and outreach, because I think right now, unfortunately, what happens is it's usually a crisis that brings people in. They really end up putting a lot of time and effort, not recognizing that there is that additional support out there. So at this point, it's really our Faith in Action program partners with area congregations, obviously through our senior centers, through our individual communities. We do have those little pockets of communication, but to be more broad too, we actually received a grant from the River Falls Foundation to do an elder care in the workplace outreach, training for people who are employed. Oftentimes, caregivers, you know, they're not just caring for their parents, they could be caring for their parents, their spouse, their children, their grandchildren, and holding down a full-time job. So anyone would, you know, find themselves being stretched thin. So that hopefully will be another way to get that information available. And to the cost to employers, I think that's important to consider. We have done the brown bag lunch sessions, and a lot of St. Croix County employees have come to that too. I think more can be done. I look around the government center and I see folks of an age that they would be in that sandwich generation, and the more we can provide that additional support to help people, the better they'll be in their jobs too. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Duncan.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Best, are you ready to give the department report?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you're on. This is for benefit of our viewing audience, is David Best.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. See if I can bring that system up online. Good morning. I'm going to give the report this morning for the Building Services Department. Ralph Robley, the Facilities and Grounds Director, was unable to be here this morning, so he's instructed me to do this for you, and I'm glad to be here. First thing I'll do is see if I can get this system to work. We've got a small PowerPoint presentation. Okay. It should be up in just a minute here, and I can log in. I have a copy of this for you. We just about ready to go, Tom? This will be my first presentation, so please bear with me.
We aren't about to leave.
Well, if I get my password right, I think we're good to go from there. Mr. Boron has instructed us that it has to be extra long, so. Thank you, Chuck. What I'd like to do is just start out briefly and just talk just a little bit about what our department does, who we are, some of the things that we do, and where we do them. And then I will jump into what some of our accomplishments were for 2006 and then some of our goals for 2007. Shouldn't be too long of a presentation. Our mission statement, to start off, is to preserve and extend the useful life of existing facilities to ensure their functionality and availability for use by all departments and the public. And the department's goal is to operate the buildings as efficiently as possible, maintain their appearance, assist in the efficient use of space, provide emergency repairs, and full preventive maintenance of equipment, structures, and grounds. The Building Services Department services approximately 320,000 square feet of buildings and their respective equipment and grounds. The department maintains the St. Croix County Government Center and Jail Complex, the St. Croix County Nursing Home, the St. Croix County Human Services Building, St. Croix Industries, also in Richmond at that complex, 2 rental houses and multiple outbuildings at the Health Center complex, and then also the St. Croix County Agricultural Center in Baldwin. And some of the services, some of the major services anyway, that we perform at those sites include full preventative and predictive maintenance programs, routine and emergency repairs, electrical, plumbing, heating, air conditioning, refrigeration, pneumatic, electronic temperature control systems, jail security systems and hardware here at the Government Center. Commercial kitchen and laundry equipment is also repaired here at the Government Center Jail and also at the Richmond Nursing Home. Both have commercial kitchens and laundry. Remodeling, light construction, full custodial care and groundskeeping, as well as 24-hour, 365-day coverage at all those facilities that I've mentioned. I'd like to talk just a little bit also about some of our current major programs that we're employing at this time. 2 of them, the first 2 will be with Xcel Energy. The first is an electrical interruption program, and what I mean by that is that we have a contract with Xcel Energy, whereas during certain times of the year under very heavy load conditions to them, they can contact us and ask us to curtail usage. And we must do that within 1 hour's time. And when we do that, then we have to generate our own power. The benefit to us is that we receive a much lower rate for our demand charges year-round. And so it's a very beneficial program. Typically, we might see curtailment, and people here have noticed it, and in the other buildings, 5 to 6 times a year. Typically, it'll be on the hottest day of the year, but it can be any time that they have a very large load on their systems. The next system is also Xcel Energy. It is a natural gas interruptible program, very similar to the electrical program in that we have a contract with them and that we must, at certain times of the year when they call, stop using natural gas. Usually that is going to be when it's, well, mornings like this morning. However, they didn't call, luckily, which would have been fine, but they didn't. And they don't call as often on that program as they do on the electrical program. But there again, we receive reduced rates year-round for the therms that we buy of natural gas for entering into that contract. So it's also a very good contract for us. And I might make note also that we do that at 3 locations. We do that here at the Government Center by using No. 2 fuel oil. We do it at the nursing home in Richmond and at the Human Services Building in Richmond by using LP fuel. On the electrical systems, we do that by bringing on our diesel generators throughout the county. We also maintain a power factor correction program throughout the county, high efficiency lighting and motor programs throughout the county, and electrical backup generators, as I mentioned. We have those at 5 locations. Actually, 4 locations. We have 2 of them right here on site in order to maintain this complex. Some of our accomplishments for 2006. Chip sealing of parking lots was completed here at the Government Center and restriping. This is the second time I think we've done that since we've moved into the building. It's been about 13 years, so I think we're getting very good life out of these parking lots. We have yet to have any major breaks or potholes that we've had to fill here. Jail electronic water control system was just replaced in 2006, one of our larger projects. Remodeling changes were completed in a number of areas. Planning and zoning, Department on Aging, the Sheriff's Department, which is just about complete at this time, and economic support in Richmond. And we have been busy replacement window walls at the Human Services Building in Richmond. That is a building that was built in 1974. Fairly inefficient windows, and many of them are failing. They have very large window walls, basically, in some of the offices. And as they have failed and budget allows and time allows, we've been removing them completely and then fitting in place a stud wall, high-efficient stud wall with highly efficient windows. That has worked out very well. And then the addition of cement steps at the St. Croix Industries building. I'd like to go back just a minute and talk about the jail electronic water control system. This system electronically controls the delivery of water to the jail cells and showers. The original system became completely obsolete in 2004. Maintenance was becoming nearly impossible, and we had to bypass large portions of the operating system to maintain service. A quote was obtained to replace the system. The quote was very large at $134,600. It was also incomplete and very complex, requiring primary service be done by the original installer, who was located over 200 miles away. The Building Services Department proposed an alternate method using in-house staff for design, engineering, general contracting, and purchasing. Sales tax and dealer markups were avoided by doing this. Contractors were under the direct supervision of the Building Services Department, and it was designed with the goals of long-term dependability, simplicity of operation and maintenance, with the lowest possible installation costs. The project was completed for $52,486 and $82,000 savings over the initial quote. The system is operating flawlessly at this time, and we expect it to continue to do so, and it is fully serviceable in-house. Some of our planned activities for 2007. Continued planning for absorber replacement. They continued planning for temperature control efficiencies. Here in this building, we have electronic temperature controls, and we have to routinely go through them, monitor them, make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. There sometimes can be situations where we can gain 1% or 2% of efficiency, and 1% or 2% doesn't sound like a lot, but it is in a building of this size. The absorbers, actually I will come back to that and I think talk a little bit more in detail about the absorbers. That is our heating cooling plant here at the Government Center, and we've had some difficulties with that, and so I would like to come back and speak to that just a little bit. Replacement of domestic hot water boilers here at the Government Center, that's scheduled through the Capital Outlay Program. They are actually residential style small boilers that heat the domestic hot water here. They've been under very hard use, and it's time for their replacement before ultimate failure. Continued planning for the use of renewable energy according to the St. Croix County Board goal setting session, and continued planning with Wisconsin Focus on Energy, which is actually where Mr. Robley is right now. He's meeting with one of their representatives this morning. The absorber replacement. Our central heating and cooling plant here at the Government Center consists of 2 large machines called absorbers. They perform both the heating and the cooling functions. They primarily use natural gas, but can also operate on fuel oil. They have performed as designed, but due to some internal problems they developed, we are actively looking at replacing these machines. We're monitoring them very closely, and we'll report that monitoring to the Finance Department. Recent years have also shown that the natural gas supply is no longer the stable, low-cost fuel it once was when these machines were installed in 1992. We are considering other primary fuels as well as researching the use of renewable fuels. We have already completed preliminary engineering to help us determine possible corrections, and we will continue to prepare for their replacement. In closing, I'd like to make mention that the government center, as I mentioned, is in excess now of 13 years old. And some of the other buildings that we're taking care of that I mentioned are nearly 60 years old. And we strive, and I believe we've been successful in maintaining these buildings in the best possible condition. We will continue to examine all aspects of our day-to-day operations and make whatever adjustments or recommendations necessary in order to use the resources of St. Croix County in the most efficient way possible. And that is the end of my presentation. If you have any further questions, please ask.
Just one question and then a comment is on the absorber replacement. As other industries and citizens across this country realize that natural gas is, as you so stated it, it also will be figured out by them. And as they convert to the cheaper sources of energy, supply and demand in this country says that those prices will go up too. So I only would just recommend that while we are multi-fueled now, whatever there is an upgrade proposal, it should be multi-fueled also.
We are looking at multi-fuel still at this time because we do have our in-ground fuel oil tanks. We have, of course, electricity, natural gas coming on site. We can also look at LP. But I know during the county board goal setting sessions that it was a concern of you here that one of your goals was that we should also research renewable energies and make sure that that is brought into the mix. And if we can do that in an efficient way possible and engineer that type of system, we'll definitely look at it. From what we have right now with our absorbers, we can only maintain with natural gas systems about 80 to 81% efficiencies with their fuel. We can go with the type of systems that are in this building to a high efficiency boiler system and get into the 90% range. Sometimes during the year we may even be able to reach 95, 96%, but we're still using natural gas and number 2 fuel oil to do that. So we are looking at that. We're looking at a number of different options for chillers that we can use that will bolt into place. We will be looking at that much more throughout 2007. And I believe we have some dollars budgeted for replacement if need be, if we need to jump into this quicker, but we're trying to plan for that in the best way that we can.
I just, and a comment quick is, understanding that you resurfaced the parking lot out here, and the main entrance out here that goes to the parking lot has a citizens area that should be striped.
Yes, yes.
And I'm sure it's going to be done, but something else is that when citizens walk out of here, they walk up to our nice plant row there. Forces them to either walk across it or walk on the roadway outside the crosswalk markings to get into the parking areas.
Oh, the one that's right in the front of
immediately in front. And what's happening is a lot of them are walking across it. So all I would recommend is some consideration be given to actually moving the plants back a little bit and putting a slab of cement in there for people to walk across, so that we're not forcing them out on the roadways to go around that little island.
And that's directly where the cars park.
Yeah, if they actually walk straight out, they're going to walk right between the vehicles down that road.
Right. And we have looked at that, and actually the Safety and Security Committee has looked at that. And one of the things that they've tried to do here is look at all aspects of how do we keep the front of the building safe, because in the past that's been the area that's been vulnerable, cars crashing into the building and so forth. And one of the things that they looked at is the fact that that actually is somewhat of a deterrent when there's cars parked there. When there's not cars parked there, obviously they're going to go right over it.
I'm not talking about moving the car. I'm talking about the island that you have sitting there with bushes in it.
Correct.
Brush or whatever.
The low ones that are in that island.
Yeah, yep. And just moving them out if you have to, so that citizens have, instead of dirt and mud to walk across in rainy weather, a 3 by 4 inch slab of cement inside there. And the only issue becomes is wheelchairs for handicap, but you can knock the curbs out for that.
And it might be a good thing to do because it's hard to keep those bushes looking good right there. They're always looking stressed. Concrete might be a better idea. Yes, sir.
Over the years, I've read some really exciting articles about heat pumps.
Yes.
And as you look at the replacement of these absorbers, is it economically feasible to think about installing a heat pump?
It may be. We're looking at the absorbers.
Maybe you could explain what a heat pump is for those of us that aren't totally.
Well, a heat pump is still an electrical device, an electric pump. It's basically the same as your air conditioning system in your house. The condenser that sits outside your house, it would be the same as that type of system, except in the wintertime, that heat that you normally feel blowing off your condenser outside, we reverse the system so that that heat comes inside the building. And then what it has to do is grab heat from outside the building. And that's the trick to the heat pumps and trying to get them to operate well in this climate when it's 10 below zero outside like it is right now. It doesn't seem there'd be much heat out there to condense and bring back into the building. But we can do that with a geothermal type of a system that uses ground heat. There are a number of different ways to do that. We can do it with piping. It would take a lot of piping on a site like this in a building this size, surface piping. And we can do it with wells, which would be more traditional, where you drop the fluids down wells and back up and down. It might take 20, 30 wells or even more. So yes, we are looking at that, and then we would probably use some type of a centrifugal machine sitting where our existing machines are in order to accomplish that.
What is the
Okay,
payoff
well,
time?
if you actually get into these design options, you'll explore them in detail and be able to give us specifics at the time
Yes.
that it comes,
Thank you.
I suppose. Any other generalized questions for Mr. Best? And a question was asked to me by a supervisor during the last week whether we take advantage of the focus, the state program for purposes of an energy audit. And I take it your answer would be that that's part of what Ralph is doing today.
Yes, we are doing that actually in two different, with two different companies, actually with Focus on Energy, and then we're also in contact with a private entity to work through some of those details.
Okay, thank you very much. We've got 4 high-paid employees here for purposes of the, or persons, not all employees, for purposes of 1 and 2 on our agenda, so let's take those next. The nursing home report. Mr. Johnson, are you going to lead off and introduce your helpers there?
So real quick update with regard to the nursing home report. January 3rd, we had our second informational meeting with regard to the request for proposals. At that meeting, we had 7 different companies represented. The first informational meeting, there was 1 company represented, so we were pleased that there were 7 there on the 3rd. At this point, all of the materials that have been requested or discussed at these informational meetings, or information that our Wifley consultant and Bill Van Offeren indicated would be necessary for companies to make a decision on submitting a proposal, have been posted on the county website. It looks very nice, and I appreciate the work that Dana Baker has done to coordinate that activity for us. So if you're interested, you can look under the St. Croix County website under procurement, and you will see all of the information necessary for vendors, companies to make a decision with regard to submitting a proposal. Also, the informational meetings, in addition to the nursing home staff that assisted in tours and answering questions, also want to thank Building Services. They were a primary part. Dave Best assisted in answering many mechanical questions that, quite frankly, nobody else was capable of answering. The requests for proposals are due February 15th. So with that due date coming nearer and nearer, it's going to be important that we address how the proposals will be reviewed. And for that, I would defer to the county board chair to maybe discuss that in more detail.
Let's. I asked you to think last month about whether to supplement the committee that you previously appointed by adding new members or making any kinds of changes. And One idea did come forward, I think it was first mentioned last month, somebody suggested the members of the Finance Committee be added to the existing members of the team. And the existing team, just to recap that, is of course Mr. Johnson and Mr. Whiting and Mr. Van Offeren and Mrs. Wentz and Dr. Kretz. Did I miss anybody? Oh, and Mr. Awesome, of course. And the Finance Committee members, Mrs. Wentz is already on the Finance Committee, of course, would be Mr. Kaflish, who's also on the Health and Human Services Board, but not currently a member of this committee, Mr. Standifer, Mr. Kruger, and myself. That was discussed, let's see, that was discussed in the Finance Committee, I think, or maybe it was in the hall, I don't recall. Was it discussed in the Health and Human Services Committee, or you haven't met since, you meet tomorrow, I guess, yeah. Well, there does seem to be some traction for that kind of an idea, so if you're open to it, we could take a motion and decide to do that or some other scheme. Mr. Strumke.
My recollections was generally as you so stated, but I think the intent there was to put people on that committee that have experience in more than just what sitting on the Finance Committee does. I don't know the backgrounds of the Finance Committee personnel, but I think we should be looking at people that have business experience, management experience, that they can look at the proposals being put forward and see if it's feasible, not financially feasible. That'd be obviously a Finance Committee area, but we're looking at putting a business plan together with the civilian entity here, and I don't think it should be narrowly focused to just finance.
I take it that's an invitation to the members of the Finance Committee to give their biographies at this point? Perhaps I misread you. Mr. Johnson.
The other thing I would point out in the group that will be assisting with regard to reviewing and rating the RFPs is WIFLE. We will have Larry Lester, and the Health and Human Services Committee has allowed his expertise to be part of the review committee setting up the RFP, as well as helping to give some direction on scoring. So I think we do have a good cross representation of folks with Larry there to help direct.
Mr. Awesome.
If I might suggest, first of all, I think Mr. Standifer is on finance, and he's an experienced banker, and I think he would have a very good ability to analyze any business proposal. And I also would suggest Mr. Jordan is experienced in real estate development, and they would be good candidates for this addition to this committee, and just some ideas offered.
Sorry, the tape recorder made a noise and I couldn't hear the second name you gave there.
Mr. Jordan.
Mr. Jordan. So Mr. Standifer and Mr. Jordan have been suggested. Any other ideas? Ms. Lucky. On behalf of all the lawyers in the nation, I wish to express our undying gratitude for that endorsement of the category. But no, I think I understand what you mean. Some of you probably don't know that Mr. Kaflish was the purchasing officer for a major health institution for a career, and then started a business of his own and successfully sold it, I guess, before retiring and getting into political offices. That's similar to what Dr. Kretz did, by the way. He started a medical clinic, had it up and running at one time, I think around 20 employees, and then sold it, and he's living off the coupons and other things since that time. I saw another hand. Mr. Raymond?
Yeah, are you looking for a motion to move this along? If you are, I'll make a motion that we add the members of the Finance Committee plus Mr. Jordan to the evaluation committee for the nursing home proposals.
Mr. Troyer.
And I'd like to second that motion. I think those are good persons to add to this committee.
More discussion on that? I would just say, by way of discussion, that that from my point of view, I'd like to see the committee start working soon. I think, Fred has suggested that by the time the offers come back on February 15th, there ought to have been some significant progress made in determining how they will be evaluated. So the committee certainly shouldn't wait till February 15th to have its first meeting, would be the way I look at it. And I'm kind of looking to see if I see heads nodding on that. Hearing whatever other discussion you may have, and then we'll take a vote on that, and then I would suggest what we might do is make it a point to gather all the people who are here. Mr. Kruger isn't, Mr. Kretz isn't, but the others, and pick a first meeting date before you leave, Fred and Bill, so that we can, and Chuck, so we can get off the ground on that. Yes, Fred.
One of the things that we had put together and looked at schedules, at least with regard to staff, and I believe with Larry Lester from Whiffley, is we had set a tentative date to review the request for proposals on the afternoon of February 21st, which is waiting until after, obviously, and not a meeting a little bit later than you had suggested. One of the things that we had considered is putting together ratings that Larry has assisted, and that could be sent out to all of the members of the committee beforehand, and feedback on that could be obtained either electronically and or through a meeting as you suggested. I'd like to just, in front of you have a job description, just like to draw that to your attention. We brought it to our classification compensation specialist to put the social worker emergency services into the correct format. This job description has been brought to Health and Human Services and then to Finance. Both have approved it. And by way of some background information, Ron Kiesler and Steve Kurt are here to talk about it in a little bit more detail. They had other responsibilities here today, and we've just piggybacked on those and thought it would be a good idea to give a little bit more detail with regard to what this work, this job description, what the work that that person will be doing.
We'll hold off on the motion to approve this position description until after their report or discussion. Okay.
First off, I just want to update folks, because I'm not sure if everyone's aware of it, that during the December of '06 Health and Human Service Board meeting, as a part of a bylaw review, our sub-department within the agency was renamed from mental health AODA to behavioral health. And so as I talk about that, I'll be using the term behavioral health versus mental health AODA. And that was part of a strategic planning process that took place earlier in the year.
I'm sorry, but could you please identify yourself?
My name's Ron Kiesler.
Thank you.
Sorry. So as part of a strategic planning meetings that we had earlier in '06, it was decided to create one mission statement, one vision statement for the entire unit, and that's how behavioral health came about. So the current position that we're talking about actually was a CSP social work or community support program social work position at one point. And what we did was to basically reorganize a part of the unit. A number of staff, therapists and social workers alike, would follow commitment tracking. If someone was committed through the civil commitment process, we're then obligated to follow that individual through the commitment, make sure that they're doing the things that are required of them to receive treatment and hopefully become healthier. And so part of that tracking piece was delegated to all of the various social workers and therapists within mental health, probably numbering 13 or 14 different staff at one point. What we did as part of a mobile community, mobile crisis unit back in January of '06, we formed that service unit in order to reduce the out-of-home costs, or particularly hospitalization costs for the mentally ill and chemically dependent individuals in the community. And so what happens is a social worker or a mobile crisis staff goes out and meets law enforcement at the time of emergency detention and helps them evaluate whether or not an ED should take place. And Steve will talk a little bit more about that program. But rather than delegating those responsibilities to those 13, 14 staff, we consolidated that into one position, and that is the emergency services social worker position that we're talking about now. So whether it's a new position or not, I tend to see it more as a consolidation, a generalist perspective versus a specialist perspective, taking all of those different, taking the duties that were a part of all those different positions and consolidating it to one individual, so that it could be done a little bit more consistently. So that's the position that you have before you. Most, if not all, of the activities in there were done by those other 14, 15 individuals on a very, very limited basis. Some may have been included, but my job description has been changed over the years. Steve's has been changed over the years. Most job positions you add to, but the fundamental responsibilities in here were actually a part of other positions along the way. So that's where we're at now. I'd like Steve to talk a little bit about the program and the effectiveness of that.
Hi, I'm Steve Kurd. I'm the Clinical Services Supervisor for Behavioral Health. And as one of my duties, I supervise the Mobile Crisis Team. And the Mobile Crisis Team is comprised of 5 individuals that we have contracts with through Northwest Counseling and Guidance and Counseling out of Frederick. And they go out between the hours of between the hours of 4 p.m. and 12 a.m. And as Ron alluded to, meet with individuals that law enforcement has decided are candidates for an emergency detention. In other words, that they're dangerous due to mental illness and or drug abuse, and they are going to be hospitalized unless some other options can be looked into and created. And so the mobile crisis worker goes out, evaluates the situation, and determines whether or not this person is dangerous to a sufficient degree that they need to be hospitalized, or whether instead they can be diverted to a safe place, and in that save that person the trauma of being literally shackled in a squad car and taken off to a hospital, and the county, oftentimes, the finances that are involved with hospitalizing people. And to date, well, actually for the year of 2006, we started in January of 2006, January 20th, and until the end of the year, we had about 115 opportunities for the mobile crisis worker to be called. In other words, there were 115 occasions where law enforcement went out to look at a situation that may result in an emergency detention between the hours of 4 p.m. and 12 a.m. Out of those 115 situations, they contacted the mobile crisis team 68 times, so about 59%. We certainly would like it a lot higher than that, but there's a kind of a learning curve that goes with any new program, and so we anticipate this year it'll be a higher percentage of those times. So 68 times the mobile crisis worker went out. Of those occasions, 53 times they were able to divert that person, or about 77% of the time they were able to take that person and move them into a safe environment other than a hospital setting. And one of the key components in doing that, and part of the reason why we looked at the reorganization, is we need to have a follow-up afterwards. And if you think about these individuals that do the mobile crisis as individuals who have a full-time job and do this as part-time, they aren't great candidates to go out the next day except on weekends to make sure that person's doing okay. And so what we decided is we needed a case manager to do that, and that's where this emergency service worker idea came about. So Carrie, the person in that position right now, goes out the next day or makes contact with the person the next day to make sure that they're following up on the crisis plan. And that way our liability is reduced. If we just divert them and let them go home and don't follow up with them, a lot of these people wouldn't follow through with the plan and may end up in serious trouble, and that would be a huge county liability. So in this way, we're ensuring that there is some continuity of care until that person is handed off to another professional, either at the county or in a private agency. Any questions about? Yes.
Do you have a rough, just ballpark comparison? Like you said that there were about 77% that you were able to divert. What would be a rough financial comparison if they had been institutionalized, so I use the word correctly, or diverted?
Well,
usually it's a lot lower cost.
Right, and you have to realize that of these 77, a high percentage had insurance, so the county wouldn't, or MA, so the county wouldn't have saved any money at all. But we figure about $45,000 that we were able to save, because you figure in about $1,000 a day, the average stay is about 3 days. So you're talking $3,000 per individual that we're saving. And we figure about 15 of those were probably, were non-insured, so about $45,000 that we saved.
You're including nothing for the cost of the sheriff's department's transport.
That's correct.
To and from, which is personnel.
You're right.
Sometimes at overtime cost at the end of a shift, gas, et cetera.
You're right.
Okay, sorry to intervene.
No,
but
that's a good point.
It's an important part of
appreciate
the
that.
cost.
Yes. Yes.
I don't think I'm qualified if you recommend somebody to be able to do these. I defer to that, you know, pretty much without question, but my area of concern, I think I am qualified to take a peek at, is the fact that you had a dozen or so people doing this and you want to consolidate those duties down to one. That's probably a good idea. My question is, though, is if you had 12 or so of these people doing this and you're going to remove a duty from them, why didn't you say that we're going to remove that duty from those 12 people and we're going to allow them to do more of what they're routinely doing, which means they have 1/12 more time to do that? Why didn't you convert one of those positions to this position instead of creating a new position? If they were able to do their duties plus this job, why aren't they now, since all of them aren't doing it, aren't we just taking one of them and converting them over, position-wise?
You want me to answer?
Actually, I think that's exactly what happened, is we took the CSP social work position and just converted that to the emergency services social work position.
And the other social workers are now taking up that caseload that
Right.
that one person gave up. And it was those cases were spread around the remaining social workers. So that's why it's a reorganization.
It's a realignment, basically.
Yet another instance of great minds thinking alike, no doubt. Are we ready for a vote on this then, or another question, Mr. Mortensen?
Yes, we're not hiring a new person,
No.
so this is not an extra to the budget or anything.
Right you are. That makes it fairly easy to vote, does it? Let's have a motion to adopt this position description and fill it with somebody who's already on board. Ms. Wentz, Mr. Kafflish has the second. Further discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes unanimously. That was a good discussion. Let's see, we'll continue to save the county clerk's report till the end because she has to be here anyway, sort of a captive there. How about the number 4, the resolution about the utility easement? And then we'll reward ourselves with a break. Mr. Standifer, are you speaking now as Vice Chair of the Finance Committee?
I'll move approval.
Second by Mr. Kafflish. I think perhaps, let me think. What do we have by way of paperwork? Nothing. What is the?
Very brief explanation, but I'll have Chuck give the explanation. It's just a very little strip of land over which they need a utility easement.
St. Croix Electric approached us about 6 weeks ago looking for an easement across a piece of property the county happens to own. It's a very slim piece, probably not half the size of this room. Finance Committee reviewed it. The Land and Water Committee reviewed it. It's in North Basswood Lake Estates. There really isn't a lot to give you other than a copy of the proposed deed, or easement itself. It's a very minor thing, but it's a function of the board to act on land issues for the county. So it'd be an easement across a sliver of county-owned property for St. Croix Electric.
If I read this correctly, you voted against the resolution, Mr. Malik?
I did. I felt I needed more information. I was puzzled by this being an outlot, and I always worry about what happens to outlots, and this is apparently an outlot that ended up being in county ownership. So I voted no from an absence of information, but I don't raise any objection or feel that it needs to be made a big deal of. And for purposes of the record, Mr. Peavy wants to show that he is abstaining. As you may know, he's the president or the chairman of the board of the electric utility here, which is being granted the easement if you vote yes for this. Mr. Cranmer?
Yes, for what purpose is this easement being taken? Is it an overhead line or something else?
My understanding is it's an overhead line, yes, to serve one residence.
And would it affect the value of the county property?
I'm not aware that anyone did an analysis of the diminution in value of the county property by granting this easement. Obviously, if that is a buildable lot, which is always a question about an outlot, it may or may not be, probably is not, but if it were, and this lot were right in the one and only place where you could build a structure, by granting the easement, we have given away the ability to build a building on it. There would be other ramifications that we could spin out at length, I suppose, but perhaps we don't need to. Are you ready to vote? Let me think. Let's see, did we get a motion on it? Yes. Yep. All in favor should now vote aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. It passes unanimously, and let's reward ourselves with a break. May also be some open session activity, but there'll be a closed session so that there can be a discussion of competitive factors, probably, potentially. There is a reminder on the agenda that I'd like to emphasize again for chairs of committees. At this time of year, please do be intentional about doing annual performance reviews of the department heads who report to your various committees. Use Mr. Whiting as a resource if you need him for the performance appraisal format, for copies of last year's reviews, whatever resources you might feel you want as a committee. But please do continue the culture we're trying to build, that everybody, every employee at least, is entitled to an annual review from which they can know where they stand with respect to the expectations of their office. I think we'll turn now to item number 3 on our old and new business, the goal-setting session report, which I take it is an administration committee function. I see Mr. Caffwish making his way to the microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Administration Committee has been given the responsibility to coordinate the goal-setting sessions that we seem to get involved in every April. Last year, we met and we had a goal-setting session where we outlined the following goals. Those goals were get the nursing home to be self-sufficient, county energy policy, which we heard about previously today, county-owned property, the optical imaging part of the technology, county board restructure, economic growth, public safety, transportation issues, developing a long-range plan, the fairgrounds, quality services and availability resources, and financial stability and land management plan. In the previous years, we've had other goals, and what seems to have happened is that those that I've been involved in, we'll get 8, 10, 15 goals, and we'll sit down, we'll have those goals, and then the next year comes around and we'll have 7, 12, 15 more goals, and then the next year comes around and we'll have other goals, and we never know what happened to the goals we had before the goals that we said we were going to do this year. So what we've done this year is we've had basically a monthly update on what's been happening with the goals that we set last year. And the recommendation would be from the Administration Committee that we will have a meeting for goal setting, but it'll be a little bit different this year. And we'll do that right after our April meeting here. We'll meet down in the community room, have lunch, and then convene into our goal-setting session. But that's going to start out by going over the goals that we set in 2006 and giving an update of where we are, those that have been completed, and so forth. And some of them are partially accomplished, but maybe we will decide that the partial accomplishment is all we need, and we may not need to go on farther. But what we want to do is have a continuity here from one year to the next to the next. So the number of goals that we're going to hopefully set in 2007 for the coming year will be more specific and less in number than they have been in the past, because I think you'll be amazed that when you really pay attention to what the goals were instead of just setting them and not doing anything about it, that we've accomplished a lot. The individual departments that have been working on the goals that we set last year, and I think that that's been evident by some of the questions and discussions that we had earlier today. So that meeting will be held after we adjourn the regular scheduled April meeting, and we'll meet downstairs in the community room. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cafush. County Clerk, would you like to give your annual report?
Did the front row get this report? Oh, okay. Good. I don't know what happened there. So, I was going to take advantage of the short agenda and make an extra long report today, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, feel free to take
2 minutes this year? Okay, thanks. I'm Cindy Campbell, St. Croix County Clerk. This report, I'm going to highlight the 2006 elections. We've had numerous changes in election laws. 2005 Wisconsin Act 451 is a bill that has numerous modifications to election laws. The bill itself is about 45 pages long. The State Elections Board has provided a summary of those changes, and I have referenced them or have referred to them several times this year in preparing for elections. First, I'd like to start off with voter registration. January 1st, 2006, all municipalities in Wisconsin require voter registration prior to a person being allowed to vote. This is a significant change for many municipalities. The City of Hudson, the City of New Richmond, City of River Falls, and the Town of Hudson has had voter registration in place, but it has changed quite a bit for other municipalities. The system is the statewide voter registration system. I refer to it as SVRS. It requires a secure login and password in order to enter data into the system. Users of the system must be trained. There is a basic training, it's 2 to 2.5 days, and then there's an advanced training, which is also 2 to 2.5 days. There's an advanced training session scheduled here at the Government Center at the end of January, and I noticed yesterday when I checked online, the classes are full. There are 2 sessions here. The equipment necessary for maintaining data is a computer, printer, and a secure high-speed internet connection. The county has 18 municipalities relying on it to maintain their voter registration data entry. Those municipalities either don't have a computer, don't have a high-speed internet connection available, so the county does that for them, and the county charges the relier municipalities based on population. We are also required to provide poll lists to those municipalities. We spent numerous hours at the end of 2005 and 2006 in setting up this system. One of the things we had to do is create address ranges. An address range in the system allows you to validate a voter registration. If the range isn't in there, the registration doesn't validate, and it needs to be looked into or added to an existing address range. For our 18 municipalities, relying municipalities, we had to go through maps of wards and schools and tax rolls, United States Post Office website, municipal clerks. I even had Dick King come in one day and help me out with some addresses in Star Prairie. We had a lot of work to put into the system in order to even begin entering voter registrations. I find myself, as I drive through the county, creating address ranges in my mind now because I've had to do this for so long. It's just been a lot of work. So, the program itself was new. The SVRS program was new. It had a lot of glitches. The system continues to be upgraded, but we still make numerous calls to the help desk. We had SVRS staff from Madison come up and help us actually do data entry and address ranges. We had one person here for 3 weeks, and just to let you know how much work it is involved, and she worked continuously on that, a lot with Amy Gerking from my office. So with that, we can enter voter registrations now. In addition to that, there are numerous steps to be taken when you set up an election, and the program, it's an Accenture program. I don't believe knew what cutting and pasting was because I have 18 relier municipalities. I have to do it 18 different times, and so it just takes a lot of time to even set up municipalities. This change has had an effect on municipalities in election management and how they set up their polling place, and I think Bill Peavy, the clerk for Old Galley, could also agree with that. It's been a significant change for them. Just a quick run through on the elections for 2006. February, spring primary, we had county supervisor, District 24. We had that involved just the village of North Hudson. We had 67 voters, 2% voter turnout. They used paper ballots at that election. The school district of New Richmond also had a school board primary, and they had 1,800 voters for that. The April spring election, which is where you all were elected or re-elected, we had a 18% voter turnout. I noted in my report that there were 4 county supervisor districts that I did not have candidacy papers. There were no candidates that had filed, and we had 3 register as a write-in candidates for those 3 of the 4 districts. After the election, I assisted the Hudson School Board on a recount. That took a couple days. The recounts are very time-consuming and detailed. And then with the spring elections, the county charges the municipalities and schools for coding and publication costs, since the county prints the ballots and does the coding and publications for those municipalities and schools. The September partisan primary, September 12th, we had about a 10% of voter turnout for that election. And then the November general election, we had about a 48% voter turnout for that. The September, I want to go back to the spring 2006. We have so many races within the county. Ballot styles are important, and so if you go, for instance, to the town of Somerset and you live in the New Richmond School District and you have your county supervisor is one and this is various wards, it's split that way. We had 92 different ballot styles for the spring election throughout the county, and that doesn't include River Falls because they do their own coding. So it is a complicated election. This spring's won't be as complicated because it doesn't have the county supervisor races in there, but I just wanted to point that out. In September, we, for the first time, used the HAVA voting equipment, the touch screen, which I have set up over here. This was, it's required by the Help America Vote Act. And all polling places must contain equipment. It enables people with disabilities to vote independently. The equipment requires both federal and state certification, and it must produce a paper trail. And on the side of this piece of equipment, you'll see that there is a printer attached to it. It is funded by federal dollars. It was $6,000 per polling place. We have submitted the application. We haven't, the county actually funded the equipment. I haven't received the funds yet. I got a call about 8:45 this morning from the State Elections Board because I was looking for the status, and they said, yes, they're working on it. The person who does this is on medical leave, and it's just been a delay. So, something like that. So we're still waiting for that. The $6,000 was fully utilized. The equipment itself was $3,500. We applied coding and extended warranties on the equipment way out, and so we're using the entire $6,000 per polling place for that. Let me just see here. After I highlighted the November election, after the November election, one of the new laws that they created was an audit. They required a direct audit of each voting system, and the State Elections Board randomly chose 50 municipality or 50 reporting units throughout the state. The city of Hudson was lucky enough to be one of those 50 to be audited, and what we had to do is it happened to be the largest, of course, in St. Croix County, and they are one reporting unit for their 6 aldermanic districts. So we had 4,100 ballots. It was treated basically as a recount. We had to go through and hand count the ballots to see if the ballots matched up with the tape from the electronic voting equipment. It took about 2.5 days to complete it, and I worked with the city clerk, and she had about 12 election officials come in and work. We had it here since all the ballots were here. We worked in the room next door here. And basically, it was treated as a recount. We had to hand tally all the ballots. And they chose 4 races. The state actually chose 4 races on the ballot. And it ended up, the result ended up being basically the same. The only changes that came about is on the optical scan ballot, if you choose to write in a candidate or write in a name of someone and you don't fill in the oval, it doesn't get picked up in the system as a vote. But the workers, after they look at the ballots, they can pick them up at that time. So that's what the changes were. The changes were in the write-ins and the undervotes, and they were very minor. But it took a long time to get through it. So we counted and recounted, and sometimes we did it 3 times just to make it come out. So it was just a long day for many of those people helping out. In addition to that, the Hudson School had a special election on December 12th. I had very little involvement in that, but I did have to help out to some extent. So, and they had about 6,500 voters. I'd like to demonstrate the equipment if I could, but I think it's going to be a little difficult to see. I don't know, have any of you used it in the polling place? Have you used it? Okay, have you? Okay. Some of the clerks use this. Encourage people to use it, some of them don't. This is basically the touch screen here. I'm going to lean it forward if that helps a little bit. And people in wheelchairs are able to get under it. Should be able to. This is the security panel. There are other panels. Hopefully that'll open it up in this regard. If you have more than one ballot style, you'll have an option, or the election official will ask you, make sure that you get the right ballot. They'll select it, and you touch the screen, and it checks it. I don't know if you can see it. The election workers have to activate it before you can begin the voting process. And this is from the November election, it's just a demo cartridge. You can go through this. You have the option of choosing straight party and selecting next, selecting candidates. When you vote, of course, in November straight party, it automatically checks that person in that party. If you decide to not vote for that person, you can just touch it and it changes. So you can see that. This also has the option of enlarging the screen, so you can see it. Doesn't fill the whole screen, you'll have to go next to it. Are you seeing it? And just next, you can go through and vote, touch. We have a couple of questions here. Abolish the IRS is one of the questions.
President for life.
President for life is just demos. And then you can go next, and then it will show you, it'll give you an opportunity to review your votes. If you choose to go back and change it, you can do that. Then you can next. And after you've reviewed it, you can touch, you need to touch this in order to cast your ballot. And now it's printing up here. Gives you another opportunity to review how you voted. It takes a little bit to print.
They don't use this in Florida, do they? Well, because they couldn't figure out the punch card thing, I don't know.
This one is just a little extra long ballot, so we're just going to continue to finish the ballot. And so the voter is here, and the question is, do you want to make any changes or do you want to cast your ballot? So you cast your ballot, of course, before you leave the booth, and it brings the ballot up. So the next person using it doesn't see it. Okay?
Did you say what you do with the printout isn't what you wanted?
Yeah, you can go back and do the last thing you do is cast your ballot.
And does it go back and somehow is that paper one that just went up voided out? And
At the end of it, yeah, it'll show that. 'cause
on
it's
the
still
end of it, it says no?
You're still in the same ballot because we haven't activated another ballot.
Does the machine give the voter a ballot to take away, or is it just inside
It's in here.
the ribbon?
And they do have, all of the municipalities have locks, so secure locks, and all of this is locked up. Their seals, if the seal's broken, it's obviously been tampered with. So now it's ready for the next voter. And again, the next person would come up, the worker would have to activate it, select the right one, and activate it. So, just a quick demo on these here. It's required in every polling place, and it's It's the municipality's decision on how they want to use it. It's there, it's available, if they encourage it, they do. If they don't, then you have the, you'll always have your paper optical scan ballots.
You wouldn't know they stand in the line anyway.
Cindy, is this a nationwide project?
It's federal.
How many people used it?
I don't get that breakdown. It depends. I can tell you in some of those, Town of Cylon, they encourage it. Most of their voters did use it. And some of them did not encourage it. It's sitting there. It's up to them, however they want it. But it's required. It's out there. So other than that, I could just highlight a few things with regard to the applications and licenses. I have put in the amounts that we've, marriage licenses issued in 2006, a little bit of an increase from 2005. Vehicle registrations, we're still over 6,000 applications processed. Passports, a significant increase in passports because of the change. I put that change in there as required for all persons traveling, including U.S. citizens, by air, from the United States, Canada, Mexico, Central and South America, the Caribbean, and Bermuda. So we have had a significant increase. If you look at our numbers, we actually processed 3,061 applications in 2006. We had 2 days between the holidays. We thought we'd have a good turnout because kids were off school, families were coming in. We processed 70 applications one day and 70 the next day. So we were lined up past the treasurer's office. It was what we expected, sort of, I guess, not that much, but there was just a lot coming in. And the county actually obtains $30 per application, so we had a significant increase in revenues for that. We also issue work permits. That number's there. We no longer sell hunting or fishing license, but we continue to validate ATVs and snowmobile registrations. And of course, with population increase, we also have an increase in dog licenses. So we had what we issue, we distribute tags and licenses to the municipal treasurers for issuing, and that's done usually in the end of October, November sometimes, so they're ready for the next year. In addition to that, the county board duties, we do agenda and minute distribution. We do that now electronically to the media and departments. We do still mail paperwork to the county board supervisors, as you know. I take minutes at Finance and County Board. Amy Gerkink in my office takes minutes for administration and public protection committees. We maintain copies of records, agendas, minutes, resolutions, ordinances in my office. Someday I'll hopefully get to scanning that once Cheryl Slynn's working on her scanning, and once she gets it in place, I'm going to piggyback on hers, hopefully, and begin to scan in resolutions and ordinances. My office continues to do some tours. I want to thank the groups who have done that or assisted with that. Lori Meyer has taken on that duty. I asked her to do that. It's just been a little bit too busy, and some of those groups that take a long time to organize. It's nice to have them through, but Lori Meyer has taken on that duty for me, and I really appreciate that. I have thanks to Amy, Renee, Patty. We've had a huge year, not only with elections, but with passports and counter work. They work hard. They don't complain. They stick with it, and they work, they're just hard workers. They do a wonderful job. Tom Boron in IT, we work with them every day. Ralph Robley in Building Services. Greg Timmerman, he answers a lot of my questions, and he actually carried in the rolls today for me so they weren't all over the parking lot. Chuck Whitey, Michelle, and Dana, I appreciate them, and of course, I work with Buck quite closely. So, do you have any questions? Oh, boy. Tom. Yeah.
You know, with the change in the voting procedures and so forth, it becomes quite confusing, not only to the voters, but for the people that are the poll workers. And I discussed this with the people that handle this in the city of River Falls. And I just want to tell you, Cindy, that they were very, very complimentary of the indoctrination and the sessions that you had and with your ability to answer questions and so forth in regards to this change, and they would like to thank you.
Thank you.
So would I.
Thanks. Cindy?
I was just wondering about the school board special election in Hudson. Who incurs the cost of that extra election on a
School.
off day?
Everything was charged to the school. The only thing that could not be charged was the municipal clerk's time to do that. Darrell?
I'm curious about two election questions. They're unrelated. Just let me throw them both out and you can respond to them. I happened to be watching the City of Hudson Common Council meeting last night on cable. I know I need to get a life, right? I apologize. They authorized the use, last night in the Common Council, they authorized the use of paper ballots for the spring primary. I'm just curious why that would be done. Obviously, there's a cost impact in there that I don't fully understand, so if you could just explain that to us.
Right.
My second question relates to the use of absentee ballots. And I think that there are more and more people that are just doing this as a pure matter of personal convenience. So my question there also relates to the cost. How much more expensive is it for a given jurisdiction to handle an absentee ballot as opposed to a regular electronic ballot?
Absentee voting, the cost, it's more time consuming for municipal clerks. They have, first they have to be sure this person, they request one, they have to be sure they're registered, and then they have to have an application in writing. They will always have paper ballots. They have to issue those absentee ballots. The postage is an expense. Other than that, they're processed on election day. So it's more time consuming. The clerks have to keep a log of this, of what was sent, who was sent to, and if it was returned. So it's just time consuming. And the larger municipalities, the City of Hudson, the nursing home, they go there, they have quite a few, or it's not nursing home, it's, yeah, they have almost 200 that vote from there. So it does, it's just, and they have to keep a log. And I'm thinking maybe Nancy, the city clerk, has an ongoing log that she has. And so, but it's just more time consuming for clerks. It is. With regard to the city using paper ballots, we have a September primary, September 20th. For most of the county, we have Justice of the Supreme Court on the ballot. We have to have this equipment in place. The voter turnout in 2005 for the spring primary, oh boy, I think the city had about 150 voters, and so it's a cost savings not to have to go through the coding for the optical scan system. The city has to petition to the state because of their population. They're the only one at this level. It goes with the 2000 census. So they had to petition to the state in order to use paper ballots. The other ones have agreed to do that, and so I'm actually just filling orders without getting them from the municipal clerks. Usually I ask them how many ballots they need and they return it to me. They're getting 25 to 50 ballots per municipality, plus they'll have this. And it's just paper ballots and they'll do a hand tally. Any objections, Bill, to that? I know. There will not be a good turnout. The other races that we have for primary is the Village of the Village of Woodville has a trustee primary, and then the school district of Clear Lake, which is a portion of the town of Forest and a portion of the town of Ceylon. So that's it for February. Charlie?
When will you be having a 4-year term for all?
That's split. I put it in here. We're on, the sheriff and the clerk of court are now on their first the sheriff's in his second 4-year term. The clerk of court began her 4-year term January 1st of 2007. The treasurer, register of deeds, county clerk, and DA will begin theirs after the 2008 election. Fall.
Be a 4-year term?
But they're staggered, so. Dick?
What's the application fee for passport now?
I say this in my sleep, I think, because I say it so often. $67 to the passport agency, $30 to the county. Has to be separate payments. If they need it In February, they need to expedite, and it's an additional $60 payable to the passport agency, so $127 to them and $60 to the county. A significant increase. Chuck?
Could you just quick explain what work permit is here?
A work permit issued to minors who are high school kids working. They get a job. The high school also issues them. We issue them here. Okay, Bill?
I was wondering what kind of IT responsibilities the county has, and now that the SVRS has been instituted and the purchase of these new touchscreen machines has been done.
The IT department?
Yeah. Is that going to be any responsibility of the current IT department for the county?
They just maintain, they make sure that our systems, our computers are okay to use the SVRS system, which is a certified software, had to be installed on all of our PCs in our department. We just use them for assistance, but mainly it's not the problems on our end, the problems that occur on the state's end. The servers are really slow. When we started entering these, you could enter one, you have to process it, you could get up, get a cup of coffee, come back, and it may just finish that first application that you've entered. It was very, very slow. Any other questions? Good.
Good.
Thanks.
While you're catching your breath before giving a report of correspondence and rezoning requests, there are a couple of other items I'll mention. Mr. Kruger couldn't be here. Gave me a question that he wanted entered into the system. After hearing the medical examiner's report last month, he questioned the medical examiner being involved with fentanyl, when in his opinion, education on that subject was a public health nurse responsibility. I have assigned that question to two of our committees, the Public Protection Committee, which has oversight of the medical examiner in the sheriff's office, and the Health and Human Services Board, which has oversight of the public health nurse, and ask them, pursuant to our bylaws, to report back on no later than the second board meeting after today. So that would be the April meeting, and the chairs have received that, and then you can look forward to they're having whatever discussion they think is appropriate and a report to us. The matter of ID badges for picture badges for county supervisors was discussed at last meeting, and Mr. Mells, I think working with Mr. Best, perhaps others, has come up with a brief set of criteria, if you will. We'll send those out so that you can look at the criteria, and we'll put that on the next board meeting agenda for adoption. That would be the March meeting. And do you have any correspondence and/or rezoning requests?
I do not have correspondence. I have one new rezoning application submitted but not scheduled. Dennis Newman from Ag to Ag Residential in the town of Somerset.
Very good. Two of our members have experienced illness that comes readily to my mind, Mrs. Wentz, and we're certainly delighted to have you here, albeit with your wing in a sling. And Mr. King suffered a tremendous bout of pneumonia, and he's done a great job of staying awake throughout the meeting and everything else. Anything else for the good of the order? Otherwise, we stand adjourned until March. Thank you.